how a broke and desperate narcissist lures you into their web of manipulation. Broke narcissists are often described by psychologists as the most volatile and hazardous form of narcissistic personalities. Not because they suddenly become more evil, but because desperation strips away the last layers of psychological restraint they usually rely on to maintain their mask. When a narcissist feels their survival slipping, financially, socially, or emotionally, clinical experts observe a predictable pattern. Shame disappears, entitlement skyrockets, and manipulation shifts from covert to primal. What was once a subtle nudge becomes a weaponized plea. Their emotions turn into instruments of psychological disarmament, and their words become carefully engineered, almost neuro-linguistic, in their attempt to override your logic and activate your empathy. At this stage, the narcissist no longer seeks love, admiration, or validation in the traditional sense. That phase is over. According to trauma therapists, a desperate narcissist's focus narrows into one instinct: exploitation. Their eyes drift toward your home, your income, your time, and especially the emotional labor they've always believed they deserve. This is the resource extraction mode, as many psychologists call it. And when they are at their lowest, something eerie happens. They begin to appear human. You might see tears, trembling hands, even a sliver of what looks like humility. But mental health experts warn this is effective mimicry, not genuine vulnerability. It is the performance of brokenness, not actual brokenness. That is exactly where unsuspecting, empathetic individuals fall deepest into the trap. The facade of suffering makes most people drop their psychological defenses, because humans are wired to respond to pain with compassion. And this, therapists emphasize, is what makes the broke narcissist the most dangerous subtype. Their manipulation is not polished or poetic anymore. It is raw survival instinct. And survival will always be prioritized over your well-being. Today, we are going to walk through the 5 psychological languages that broke, desperate narcissists rely on. Each one is a manipulative dialect crafted to bypass your boundaries. And number 5, as always, will change how you interpret every interaction you ever had with them. But let's begin with the first one, the one psychologists universally call the most psychologically disarming: the language of self-pity. When a narcissist is financially or socially cornered, they begin speaking in narratives drenched in victimhood. Psychologists refer to this as learned helplessness theater, where the narcissist weaponizes tales of misfortune to elicit emotional rescue from their target. They might sigh deeply and say things like, "Nothing ever works out for me," or "Everyone abandons me when I need them the most." These phrases aren't casual. They're psychological hooks. The goal is to trigger your nurturing instincts, lowering your boundaries and entering what therapists call caretaker trance. You begin thinking they're not dangerous, they're just wounded. This, experts warn, is exactly what they want. Vulnerability in a narcissist is rarely vulnerability. It is bait. A male narcissist might lean into gendered sympathy, saying, "I've had such a rough life. I just need a safe place to figure things out." Your compassion responds instantly, because psychologists remind us, humans are evolutionarily programmed to protect the seemingly weak. And then it happens. Out of kindness, you offer space. You say, "You can stay with me for a while, until you get back on your feet." That is the moment you lose the first war. Not because you meant harm, but because the narcissist now views your home as their base of operations, your bank account as their emergency fund, and your empathy as their unlimited credit line. This dynamic, according to experts, is the hallmark of covert exploitation. You don't even realize you've been drafted into their survival plan. Broke narcissists are uniquely dangerous because they don't present as predators. They present as damaged souls. And psychologically, that illusion is far more potent. The second manipulative dialect is what experts call the deflection language. Once you begin helping them, the narcissist subtly shifts the tone. Deflection is one of the oldest psychological defense mechanisms, designed to shield the ego from accountability. In narcissists, however, it becomes something like psychological sorcery. Therapists note that they bind you through narratives that always position them as the wronged hero in a story full of villains. "My ex ruined me financially. Business partners betrayed me. The system's rigged. I never had a chance." Every loss has an external cause. Every failure has an external explanation. Their excuses become almost poetic in their creativity, but beneath that poetic layer lies a refusal to evolve, because change requires effort, and effort threatens their fantasy of superiority. If you ask why they didn't save money while they had it, they'll blame stress or survival mode. If you suggest finding a job, they'll dismiss the world as too fake, too toxic, too unfair. Psychologists call this spiritual bypassing, where spiritual or emotional vocabulary is used to justify stagnation. Over time, what you'll notice is chilling. They possess the language of healing but never the actions of healing. They talk about growth from the comfort of your couch. They talk about trauma but never attend therapy. They speak of purpose while you are the one paying for their grocery bills. Their stories cast them as noble yet powerless, while subtly positioning you as the only person capable of saving them. This brings us to the third dialect, the crisis language. When deflection no longer maintains your sympathy, psychologists say narcissists escalate into manufactured chaos. Every week becomes a new emergency. My wallet was stolen. I'm about to be evicted. My health is failing. This is not coincidence, it is strategy. By keeping you in a constant state of emotional urgency, they prevent you from stepping back and recognizing the patterns. Mental health professionals warn that the human brain, under constant crisis, goes into reactive mode, shutting down the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic and discernment. Broke narcissists understand this instinctively. Crisis is the fog they thrive in. Instability becomes their camouflage, because when you are busy putting out fires, you never ask who started them. They'll make you feel guilty for being steady when their world is falling apart. Psychologists often describe this tactic as emotional inversion. The narcissist flips the emotional dynamic so that your calm becomes cruelty and their chaos becomes justification for why you must provide. They'll mutter lines like, "You're lucky you have everything," not as an observation, but as a psychological pressure point. Their underlying message is clear: because you have more, you owe me. And the more you give, the more they sink into helplessness, because dependence becomes their strategy, not their misfortune. Victims often describe feeling guilty for wanting basic peace, and psychologists say this is not an accident. It's conditioning. The narcissist keeps a crisis alive not because life is genuinely collapsing, but because urgency is the only tether that keeps you orbiting around them. Over time, you'll notice an uncanny pattern. Every emergency arrives right before rent is due, right when a bill is looming, or precisely at the moment you start emotionally distancing. This predictability, mental health experts say, reveals intent more than accident. Their life is not falling apart, it is choreographed. The crisis is a performance, a psychological theater designed to keep you in the role of rescuer. And once they sense that your empathy is nearing depletion, they switch to their next dialect, their favorite addiction, the language of validation. This is where the narcissist's obsession with image and fantasy-born prestige begins to surface. Psychologists note that narcissists rely heavily on what's called externalized self-worth. Their sense of identity comes from how impressive they appear, not who they truly are. So they start speaking in brands, luxury, exclusivity. They pretend to have refined tastes, sophisticated interests, elite social circles. They wear expensive clothes bought with someone else's money. They insist on quality while living in debt. They align themselves with prestigious groups they can't afford to belong to, clinging to the illusion that proximity equals achievement. These behaviors fall under what therapists call financial narcissism, a distorted belief that appearances matter more than actual stability. They'll rather owe 10 people money than admit they're struggling. They measure their worth by perception, not production. It's not about having money. It's about looking like someone who deserves wealth. That's why they drop phrases like, "I only like the finer things in life," or "I could never settle for less." Grandiosity isn't just a preference. It's the scaffolding holding up their fragile identity. Yet beneath the designer mask lies a cocktail of debt, dependency, and shame they refuse to acknowledge. Psychologists highlight that shame is the narcissist's most intolerable emotion, so they cover it with excessive validation seeking, photos in luxurious spaces, name-dropping, fabricated connections with successful people. Everything is facade. Everything is illusion. Everything is built to avoid confronting the truth. Without the image, they feel like nothing. And this collapsing inner world escorts us into the fifth dialect, the most dangerous of them all, the fantasy language. When broke narcissists become cornered by reality, they detach from it. Psychologists describe this as narcissistic escape into fantasy, a mental space where accountability cannot reach them. Their visions become grandiose, untethered, and increasingly unrealistic. They speak of massive projects, lucrative deals, life-changing opportunities just around the corner. Its future faking at its highest vibration. You'll hear them say, "Once my project takes off, we'll be set for life." But there is no project, only an idea they've polished in their mind. At first, you might mistake this optimism for ambition, but therapists warn. Ambition requires action, while narcissistic fantasy requires only an audience. Their dreams get bigger while their effort shrinks smaller. Their imagination becomes a substitute for work, because reality exposes their failures, and fantasy protects their ego. This is where psychologists observe a dangerous intersection, narcissism blurring into delusion. They start manifesting instead of applying for jobs, posting motivational quotes instead of building skills, blaming your lack of faith instead of facing their own stagnation. You find yourself living in their imaginary world, suspended between hope and denial, convinced that tomorrow holds a miracle while today quietly drains your life. By the time you snap out of the spell, sometimes months, sometimes years, you realize you have financed their dreamscape while sacrificing your own momentum, sanity, and future. And that is the truth. Every broke narcissist becomes fluent in all 5 languages. They mix self-pity with crisis, validation with fantasy, deflection with delusion. Each dialect targets a different part of you, your empathy, your logic, your finances, your emotional stability. They don't just drain your wallet, they drain your forward motion. They don't just take your time, they take your trajectory. If you have ever caught yourself paying their bills, covering their rent, apologizing for saying no, or feeling responsible for their survival, understand this. Psychologists classify it as coercive dependence, a form of manipulation disguised as helplessness. And that is why broke narcissists are the most dangerous. They cannot purchase control, so they make you volunteer it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, as always, let the healing begin and continue.